Hello, and welcome to Crime in Court. My name is Heather, and we are on episode 12 of the Wisconsin versus Zachariah Anderson case, and we are now going to go through the witnesses that the defense calls to the stand. So the defense is now putting on its case. We've gone through... So let me back up a little bit. We've gone through the whole incident from the beginning. If you started episode 1, if you're new just finding me, we go through the whole incident. We go through all the evidence. We go through a lot of the court documents. We go through the motion hearing to remove District Attorney Gravely from this case. We talk about the mistrial in the first one. So, I mean, there's so much that led us up to just where we are today. So we've gone through all of that. If you're interested in that, I recommend going back and looking at those videos. But this is now the defense's case. So we are watching the trial, and the last episode we just did was Shady Sadie on the stand. Before that, we talked about the credibility of other witnesses, and now we're going to and all of that was the state's case, with the defense obviously, you know, having an opportunity to cross-examine all of the witnesses. So now these are the witnesses that the defense is calling to the stand, and this is the first witness. Her name is Julianne Avila, and she is she's an evidence tech. So she's going to talk about some of the findings of the minivan. So without further ado, let me fix my thing here. Okay. Oh, and before I forget, please like this video, comment, subscribe. It helps the algorithm. It helps you. It helps me. It helps us all. And thank you so much for doing that. I appreciate you for subscribing. Thank you for being here. And away we go.
Okay, and can you... What does this chart depict generally?
For the record, can we just say what the
Sure, sorry.
exhibit is?
Defense Exhibit 351.
I created this chart just for my own personal notes, just to see where I tested stains in the van. I did not collect these stains, but I just wanted to make note of where I had done some testing. I noted where there was carpet missing from the van, and that's generally what this is, just for my notes.
And so wherever... Let's start with the steering wheel. You had made a note for the steering wheel. What did that note indicate, if you remember?
There was a stain, a darker stain on the steering wheel that I observed, and that was just something that I tested.
And then if maybe you could just walk through each of the items that you noted and what you did.
Sure. So they don't have specific, some of them have numbers of kind of just what areas I tested. What I did was I used something called phenolphthalein, which is a presumptive test for blood. It's not a determining factor. It just it could possibly be. And so I tested the steering wheel. I tested the running board along the side of the driver's side of the vehicle. There was an area behind the front passenger seat, the seatbelt, the carpet, and then the seats were all missing out of the van. So I tested a few areas of the carpet. I also tested it, if you know, like sometimes in the back of those vans they have like cup holders where the seats would be. There were some reddish stains there that I tested. I tested areas on the metal parts, which is the bottom part that had no carpet. I tested along there with phenolphthalein, and they were all negative.
And when you say they were all negative, what does that mean?
There was no indication of blood using phenolphthalein as a presumptive test.
No indication of that red fluid DNA anywhere in the car by using phenolphthalein. So just like spraying it down, they didn't get any reactions.
Did you do any other tests? Strike that. There are other types of tests that can be employed to determine the presence of... Are there any tests that can be employed to determine the presence of blood?
Yeah, so usually when we start out looking for blood, we're using basically just a high-intensity flashlight, looking for any signs that appear to be reddish-brown stains, as blood usually appears to look. After that, if you something that you can't see with your eye, we might employ luminol, which you may have seen on TV. If you spray it in the dark, instead of giving a color change, it gives a change of light. It emits like a light. So once I was done testing with phenolphthalein, I used luminol and sprayed the van with that, and I saw one area that had a little bit of a glow, and I collected that stain.
And that stain, though, wasn't further tested.
I believe it was tested, but that would have been by the DNA unit. I didn't test it with any kind of presumptive test.
Was that A2?
Yes.
Okay. That wasn't A.
So that tiny little pinprick of DNA that they say is Rosalio's, that Lisa Treffinger said was Rosalio's, only appeared with the luminol testing. It didn't react to the phenolphthalein. Nothing reacted to the phenolphthalein, which is another preemptive test that you can do to look for DNA, the red fluid kind specifically. And the luminol testing of this tiny, tiny little pinprick, that would glow to any kind of DNA or, biological material. It could be Zach's cells. It could be Zach's blood. It's his truck. He worked in it. He might have scraped a knuckle on something and, it got on where it was. I don't know. But regardless, yeah, let her continue. So yeah, there was one tiny little pinprick of DNA. That's what she's talking about, that lit up with the luminol. That's the only DNA that they found within the vehicle that reacted to any of their tests.
A1.
Correct.
And can you explain to the jury if luminol reacts to any other substances or things other than blood?
It does. It's just a presumptive test. Like phenolphthalein, it'll react to rust, bleach, and some other kind of cleaning products.
So it does react to bleach?
It can react to bleach, yes.
You had noted that there were some bleach stains in the vehicle, or did you?
I did. They appeared to have the consistency of what bleach might look like.
When you did the luminol testing, did it react to those areas?
No.
And then you had noted that another thing that luminol can react to is rust. Did you observe any areas of rust in and around the vehicle?
Yes, the car did have rust.
What was your overall impression of the state of the vehicle?
The vehicle was had a significant amount of wear and tear to it. As I said, the carpet was missing. The carpet was dirty. There was a lot of clutter in it.
It was dirty.
Was it very dirty on the inside?
It was.
You had also taken some pictures.
Yes.
I'm going to go through them. It's a packet of pictures that were taken, marked as Defense Exhibit 352. Show you the first picture in that packet.
This is the luminol
It looks like
testing.
a big dark screen, but can you explain perhaps what this photo was?
I don't remember what that.
Do you take photos when you're doing the luminol processing?
I do. And usually.
This is the luminol testing. Do you see any of the spots that light up? No. We looked at a picture where luminol actually, it's on the Frey Zachariah website too. I can't remember what tab it was on, but it showed you, I think, let me double check. I just want to duplicate my tab here. Let me see. I think it was here. If I can find it quickly. I wasn't prepped for this. I hate doing things on the fly. Oh, you know what? I think it was not that. It was the unseen evidence. Yes. Okay. So this is what luminol would look like when it reacts with biological fluids, such as the red fluid DNA, saliva, other things I'm not going to say, but you know what I mean. So this looks like some kind of something happened here. This, Zachariah's truck, you could see the rear view mirror here. I don't see any luminol lit up. They said they found a tiny little bit. I don't even see it in here. So that's the difference. That versus that. Just be aware.
Okay, so usually what we do is luminol, because it has to be taken in the dark. Sometimes your exposures will be a little too dark, and it's hard for that luminol to show up. It has to be like sometimes maybe a minute or a minute and a half exposure to try to capture it. And because the luminol was so faint, it doesn't really show up very well in this photograph.
Okay. The next picture.
I believe that is the area behind the driver's seat in the back. So in the back area where there would possibly be bench seats, there were some compartments back there and cup holders. Okay. These are just the items that were inside.
And was this one? We can see a reddish stain in this photo.
Yep.
Was that one of the stains that you tested?
I don't know for sure. I had marked them with like Post-it notes and stuff, so I'm not sure if that was one of the ones I tested or not.
Okay, I'm going to skip forward and then we'll go back to this photo. I might have to hand it to you just because of how.
Yeah.
Make it brighter.
Okay. Okay.
It's terrible.
Yep.
Okay, so now looking back at this previous photo,
Yes.
does that help?
Yes.
Okay, so that was an area that was tested?
Yes, it was.
And what came back negative?
Correct.
And why did you want to test these stains?
Well, because of the color, of the appearance of them being a reddish-brown stain, I was testing whatever I saw that could possibly be blood.
This photo area.
So this is a mid-range photo of the footwell of the driver compartment.
And did you observe anything of interest in that area?
No.
And did that area appear to have been cleaned?
Cleaned? No. So this is the step area going into the cargo area or the passenger area behind the driver's seat.
Okay, and so this is the step threshold area that you tested?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to show you another picture of that. Is this just a close-up?
Yes.
And why did you test that area?
Again, there was a reddish stain there that I was interested in.
Because it possibly could have been
Blood.
blood?
Yes.
And what was the result of that specific test?
It was negative.
Can you describe what this is?
This is the back area, the very back area of the van by the lift, back tailgate of the van. This is the metal part. You can kind of see a little bit of the carpet in the upper right-hand corner. And so this was just the bare metal.
And the bare metal, was there a lot of dirt and debris on top of it?
It was dusty. It was kind of dirty.
It was dusty?
Yeah.
Okay. And there's also arrows in this photo?
Yes.
And are those arrows depicting areas that you tested in that area?
Yes.
And the test for presence of blood?
Yes.
And what were the results of those tests?
They were all negative.
Okay. What is this, besides the obvious?
The steering wheel in the van, I have an arrow pointing to what looked like a reddish-brown stain on the wheel.
And again, why did you want to test that stain?
Because of the appearance, I wanted to test it with phenolphthalein,
And the appearance of it?
being like a reddish-brown stain.
Okay. And the result of that test?
Was negative.
Do you remember this?
I do.
This is the stain on plastic. This is the stain.
I believe this is the stain on the headliner above the cargo door area. It would have been on the driver's side. So as you lift the door, it would have been right up here at the top.
Okay. And that was tested?
It was.
And that was negative?
Yes.
There's this picture. Is there a reason you took this?
Just documenting the overall condition of the van and what was inside.
Okay. So in this case, the clutter.
Yes.
In this picture, was there any significance or just another overall?
Again, just documenting the overall condition of the van.
Okay, and in this picture, I'm going to point to it on here, we see this container. Were you able to determine what that container was?
I don't remember offhand what that is.
Do you remember finding any sort of cleaning wipes or any wipes in the van?
I think there were, and that could be, there were bleach wipes, perhaps.
I'd like to move into evidence defense exhibit 352.
No objection?
No objection.
Received.
I have no further questions for this witness.
Okay, so we talked, I think, about A2, Ms. Avila. We haven't talked about sample A1, have we?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit.
State's Exhibit 1, 313.
So again, this is State's Exhibit 1, 313. It's going to show up on the screen up there on the television. Is that a picture that you took from back in the time of this van review?
Yes.
Do you recall what day you and Ms. Treffinger did this process with the van? It appears to be prior to June, or prior to late June at least. Do you remember when this was?
I don't remember the specific date, but I believe it was in May.
So if I indicated to you the photograph is dated 5/21, is that an excellent way to figure out when you did this?
Yes.
And so if you look up at the exhibit, does it have a time and date of the photograph? Yeah. So are these the photographs? Is your photography in this? If it says it started on 5/21, does that refresh your memory about when this happened?
Yes.
Okay. So just for purposes then of the record, when do you believe, based on your memory being refreshed, that these photographs and this testing is completed or done?
I took these photographs on 5/21, it appears.
Okay, of 2020.
Yes.
So you were asked briefly about the condition of the back of the van. Does this accurately reflect what you saw on May 21st?
Yes.
So when you saw it, the items that would normally anchor in the carpet or be anchored in by the carpet were situated off as they are in this, or have you manipulated that in some way at this point?
I pulled those off myself.
You did? Okay.
Yes.
So previously, were they in the location they would normally be if the carpet was still remaining?
Yes.
Okay. And you looked at a number of items where there was a red-brownish thing in appearance, and you felt like you needed to do what you called what did you call it, a preliminary test?
Presumptive.
Presumptive test, okay. And so you did that at a number of locations on this vehicle, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And that includes on A2 that was brought up to you that was a area on the lower plastic molding in the rear cargo area. Is that correct?
Luminol would be a presumptive, yes.
Okay. So could you smell the bleach when you reviewed this particular vehicle? Do you remember?
I don't remember smelling bleach, no.
Could you see some clear stains, some of which are depicted on this?
Yes.
Did they appear to be consistent with bleach stains based on your observations?
They did.
So if bleach sometimes reacts with luminol, and if you're seeing a bleach stain, why doesn't the luminol do anything in this case if you know?
I don't know why it didn't react.
Okay. But you maintain that your physical observation is that appear to be bleach stains?
Yes.
All right. Does luminol always react to?
They look like they were old stains. So how, I mean, if it bleached like a long, long time ago, would it still react? Does anybody know in the chat if luminol would react if you bleached an area like, say, years ago? Like, this is an old van. Say that it happened years ago when some bleach spilled when he was bringing it home from the grocery store or something. Sometimes those lids come right off. Happened to me. So, I mean, I don't know. Would it still show up years later with the luminol? That's my question. I have no idea.
Bleach, or is that something where it is not always happening?
I would say it probably doesn't always happen.
Okay. So for you, it is an indicator, but it is not definitive in your experience.
Correct.
So how many times have you, during your employment, been an individual who was observing stains and having to make at least the most preliminary thought process about whether something is blood?
How many times?
Yeah. How many times do you think you've done this on behalf of the state crime lab?
Well over 100 times.
And in that time period, then part of that is because you're trying to figure out, is this going to be tested further, DNA unit, et cetera, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So when you came across A1, is A1 depicted on the exhibit that's up right now?
Yes, it is.
And if the judge gave you a pointer, would you be able, remember those pointers from the old days?
Yes.
If he gave you one of those old traditional pointers, could you point out where A1 is on this particular exhibit?
No.
Okay, so you can go back. Thank you. So that you're at a microphone.
I'll go back to that. Hold on.
Okay, so you can go.
Right there is the bleach stain. It doesn't look fresh, does it? And even so, like, that would be a weird spot if there was DNA, like, right there. If he, like, and then this piece of carpet, which is so little, wouldn't be the size of Rosalio. So none of this would have, it doesn't relate. It doesn't match to Rosalio's body being in there. And then he cuts this tiny little portion of rug and then a tiny little bleach spot that looks so old. And I'm trying to find, might bleach interfere? No, all I'm finding is ways to clean up bleach. And or to clean up BL-OOD, which I don't want to do that. I want to know if bleach, I asked, will luminol react to an old bleach stain? But it's not telling me, so Google doesn't know. It's just telling me BL-OOD stains. Sorry, I tried to educate us all, but Google doesn't know. So
Go back, thank you, so that you're at a microphone.
Thank you.
So are you the one who placed the sticker on A1 then?
Yes,
So this would be another one of those things that needed consideration for yourself and for Ms. Treffinger, correct?
correct.
And this was a team approach. You and Ms. Treffinger were trying to consult at times where either of you felt the other's expertise.
her and Miss Treffinger, Lisa Treffinger, who said that the DNA, the little speck aluminol, was Rosalio's, matched Rosalio's DNA, also worked with this woman here on screen. And they worked together to process the van. So they have different things to say about the results.
This would be helpful.
Yes.
Remember,
So
she is a defense witness. So Lisa Treffinger, who said it was Rosalio's, was obviously for the state. And now this woman she's a defense witness. And she's saying something different.
as to this A1, did you and Ms. Treffinger have any kind of discussion about whether any of the presumptive testing should be utilized on A1?
Yes, we did.
Okay, and why would you need to do that? If the other places you put little tabs were either sprayed or had a presumptive test applied, why would this one be one where you needed to discuss it?
This was a very small stain. As Lisa and I were standing at the back of that van, I was on the passenger side, she was on the driver's side, and we were looking in, and we have a height difference. And as I looked, I could see on that molding just this very, very small stain. And as we talked about it, we decided that it was best to just collect the stain so we had all of it, as opposed to trying to take a little bit of it for a presumptive test. It was just very small.
You didn't want to compromise your ability to have the whole amount there to be sure you had the most accurate ability to test.
Correct.
So
I believe I brought this up before in one of my videos. If the speck that they found was so tiny and so minute, how do we know that they even had enough to create a proper profile? Because if it's a small amount, you have to replicate it and whatever, and you might not be able to do that. That's with the Idaho 4 case right now, and Brian Koberger, that's an issue going on with the fact that it was such a small amount of cells that they claimed were Brian's on the snap of the sheath. Well, how can you be sure if you had such a small sample, is my question. And DNA is not perfect, and the people who apply the techniques to and the tests are not perfect. So just because, but people don't understand that if you say the DNA matched, they don't understand that there's so many other ways that it could, there's something that could have gone wrong in the processing, in biases. Maybe someone's being told this has to match. Who knows? I'm not saying that that's happened in this case, but it does happen in some cases. So it's just an interesting way to look at things.
did you have an opinion, seeing that item at that location, about whether it appeared to you to be blood?
I did think it was possible that it was blood, yes.
And then, and what did you base that on?
Just my past experience as a crime scene person and what I've seen with blood over the years of working crime scenes, this just had the appearance of it.
So I guess I need to ask you, as to the other stains that you saw, or the other spots you saw, did any of the others appear to you to also be blood, or was this the one that stood out to you?
I thought the others possibly could be because they had a dark reddish color, but this one did stand out to me.
Okay. And what about it stood out to you? So why based on your experience, did you say, you know what, these others might be blood, but this one stands out?
Just the appearance of it, there was a little bit more, if I remember right, a little bit more to it. It was a little thicker, but it was so small, and just had the appearance of just a spot of blood.
So let me just show you a close-up of this same picture, if I can.
This is states 1-315.
And I'm going to bring this even closer if we can magnify this a bit. Okay, so again, looking at this, is that consistent with what you're discussing?
Yes.
Okay. And
So that tiny, tiny, tiny little speck that they had to zoom in so much to see potentially means that Rosalio's entire body, it was in the back of that van. After all that liquid DNA that was found in his apartment, this would be the only speck that you find in a already very dirty van that obviously obviously has not been cleaned.
Having been a crime scene analyst, you said you've done this particular profession for 5 years, correct?
More than 5, yes.
At that point, right? Are you still doing it now?
Yes.
So you have an additional 3 years of experience of this since then, correct?
Correct.
Do you have an opinion as to whether the characteristics of what we see on the screen is consistent with items that have been transferred to that location as opposed to have fallen or splashed or something else at that location?
When we talk about transfer stains, we talk about something that may have either been on your hand and you touch an item and it's left behind. Or if blood is already on something and you put your hand through it, that's a wipe. The other one would be called a swipe. To me, this just looks like a very small speck of possible blood that was just possibly came off of something. It's just got just a little bit of a drip or a splash, but it's not what I would call a transfer stain.
So in your experience, professional experience, it's not consistent with a transfer, with somebody deliberately applying it?
It does not appear to be, at least in that fashion.
All right, what happened to you, Gravely?
Can you on A1? But like you said, there were several other areas in the car that you thought could possibly be blood.
Yes.
And there were other stains that had a similar appearance as well.
Yes.
A similar appearance as item A1.
You know, I'm going to skip because they're just talking about the blood spatter. So let's get back to here. Our next testimony is coming from Nathan.
Yes, I am.
What is it that you do?
Hold on. It's coming from Nathan Hensley, who is a neighbor of Rosalio's. He resided in the same building as Rosalio, and his girlfriend's going to come up next on the stand too. So here we go.
I work in concrete. I'm a concrete finisher.
Very nice. I'm going to just jump right into it. Do you remember talking to law enforcement back in May of 2020?
I do remember, yes.
During that time, where were you residing?
I lived in Wood Creek Apartments,
Do you remember the address?
3709 15th Street, apartment 1A.
Okay, and you said apartment 1A. If you can just explain to the jury kind of the layout of that apartment building.
If you were to walk in the front, it would be the back right corner.
Okay, so did you know where apartment 1B was located?
I believe the front right corner.
So would have been the unit right next to yours.
Yes.
And thinking back to, I know it's a long time ago, but do you remember on May 19th, 2020, speaking with a detective?
I remember one came to our door, yes.
And do you remember being asked whether you were at home on May 17th, 2020?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you remember providing a written statement?
A written statement?
Yeah.
No, I don't remember that either.
If I was to show you something, would that help refresh your recollection?
Possibly, yeah.
I'm good.
I don't remember reading it.
The contents of it, do you remember saying that?
Yes, possibly. Yeah.
And was that, so now that you reviewed that, do you remember what you told law enforcement about your observations on May 17th, 2020?
I believe I told him I didn't hear anything or see anything.
And was that in regards to the time frame that the detectives were interested in?
Yeah,
And you were home at that time?
I believe so, yes.
And you're saying during that time, so evening hours of May 17th, 2020, you didn't see or hear anything?
Not that I am aware of or remember.
I have nothing further for Mr. Hensley.
I have to take a look at it. Just tell me if you wrote it, or if you signed it. So it's not Exhibit 1, it's Exhibit 353. Okay, that I'm going to show you. Can you take a look at that, Exhibit 353? What I want you to hone in on is the signature, and tell me, does it look like that's your signature?
That is my signature.
Okay. Now, is the writing yours in the middle, or did somebody fill that out for you?
That doesn't look like my writing, no.
Okay. But when you signed it, you were saying, best I know, it's accurate, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's first talk about the date that you gave that statement. I assume the statement you signed was at the same time the cop talked to you. There weren't two different visits, were there?
Not that I believe, no.
So you believe it was just one time you saw the police?
Yes.
Did they come to your place, if you remember?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they came to my door.
Okay. So if I'm correct, it says it's May 25th, right? Is that the date that's on the statement down by where you signed?
Oh, yes. Yes, it is.
So that would be the date that you talked to the police, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes? You got to say yes or no?
Yes, I'm
okay.
sorry.
And they're asking you about, if you look at the top, it says on May 17th. Do you see that?
Yes.
So they're asking you about something that happened 8 days earlier. Is that true?
Yes.
So my guess is that you weren't keeping a diary or keeping track of exactly what you were doing on any given day 8 days earlier. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Now it does say it was a Sunday. That helps remind you, okay, so where would I have been on a Sunday evening? Correct?
Yes.
You didn't, at that time, were you working on Sundays?
No.
So that'd be a day off?
Yes.
Okay. And so it says 2,000 hours, right? It's kind of military time. Does it say 2000?
Yes.
So they were asking you about 8 p.m.? Is that how you took that?
Yes.
So nobody asked you about what happened at 9:30 p.m.?
No, not that I...
No one asked you what happened at 10 p.m.?
No.
So if something happened an hour and a half or 2 hours later, that you're not talking about that in this particular statement?
I was muted. I think he's just picking apart semantics, because if you were asked, hey, did you see anything strange or hear anything strange, around 8 o'clock last night? You'd probably say, no, but I heard something around, I don't know, a little later than that. It might have been maybe 9:30, 10 o'clock. I don't know. Right? Like, wouldn't you, wouldn't you, say something like most people, I would think, would? It doesn't exclude the witness from saying, no, I heard something later. So, I don't know.
No.
Okay. So I guess I'll ask, did you hear anything later in the night either that you remember?
I don't remember.
You don't remember. Fair. So were you living with somebody back in Wood Creek there?
Yes, my girlfriend.
Your girlfriend. Okay. So tell me what a Sunday night would have looked like. TV, music, computers, were you guys gamers? What do you think, what would be your best help for us on what you would have been doing at 10 p.m. on a Sunday back in 2020?
Either TV or movie or sleeping.
All right. Sleeping was in the picture even at 10?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. If you were asleep, you wouldn't hear anything. That's fair? Or unless it could wake you up, but otherwise you wouldn't.
No, it wouldn't wake me up, no.
What?
I'm a heavy sleeper. So,
Oh, you are?
Yeah, no.
I think I'm going to end with that. Thanks very much.
Nothing further.
All right, so
I
next.
guess I'm going to move it into the exhibit.
No, I would.
You don't want it in? Okay.
No, it's- I
Then I
don't
won't.
appropriate.
Yeah, give me a hand. Thank you. I guess we'll keep it as part of the record.
Next is Nathan Hensley's girlfriend, who comes to the stand.
And do you remember your apartment number?
Sorry.
Or a specific address?
I think it was 3709. I don't know. I don't remember the street. Sorry.
If I said 15th Street, does that sound right?
Yes.
And do you remember your apartment number?
1A, I believe.
And so in Wood Creek Apartments, while you were living there, did you know an individual named Mr. Gutierrez?
No, not personally. I knew him after everything kind of happened. I guess I heard of him.
Okay. And do you know where apartment 1B was located in relation to your apartment?
Yes.
And where was that?
So it would be right next to us, basically. Yeah, to our left.
Okay. So I want to jump back to May of 2020, May 17th of 2020. It was a Sunday. Do you have a recollection now, I know it was a while ago, about what you were doing on that date?
If it was a Sunday, I probably would have just been at home, or maybe I was with my parents away at their house, so it would be either or.
Okay. Do you remember speaking with detectives in this case?
Yes.
And you spoke with detectives on 2 separate occasions. Was one, the first time that you spoke to a detective, was that because they came to your house or your apartment, or did you go to the police department? Do you remember where that conversation happened?
Yes, they came to my apartment.
And was that the day where there was a lot of law enforcement there?
Yes.
Okay. And you remember seeing all of that?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
And do you remember what the detective asked you?
I think he kind of asked me like if I seen or heard anything.
And would that have been for that Sunday, May 17th?
Yes.
And what did you tell the detective?
I'm pretty sure I told the detective that I did not hear or see anything.
And was that accurate?
Yes. Yeah.
And were you then home on May 17th, 2020?
Yes.
And for that entire evening?
Yes, I would have been. Yeah.
And that entire time, you didn't hear anything
No.
or see anything.
No.
And now, thinking back to when you were living in Wood Creek Apartments, if there was a very loud noise or someone screaming or yelling, would you think you'd be able to hear it?
Objection seems like it would call for speculation.
Kind of sounds that way.
It's from when she lived there, her own observations, if she could hear things that were loud.
Everyone's.
If you can't hear, then you don't know that you're not hearing.
Right. Do- Have you heard people arguing or screaming before in Wood Creek Apartments?
Arguing, screaming, no. I heard footsteps. I hear footsteps and stuff like that, like door shutting and stuff like that, yeah.
And so, thinking back to May 19th when you were giving the statement, if you even heard things like that, you would have told law enforcement.
Yes, yes.
And you didn't hear anything of that sort.
No.
That's what I'm
And,
saying. Like, it doesn't matter what time you specify necessarily. If you say that night, sometime that night, I'm going to say, no, I heard steps or whatever. I heard an argument it happened at 11 p.m. or whenever you heard it. You're going to chime in with no, but if you're being asked by the police if you heard or saw anything. You know what I'm saying? At that specific time. Anyways.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Any redirect?
Ms. Ziegler, Ms. Ziegler.
By the way, her name is Jennifer Ziegler. She is the girlfriend of Nathan Hensley. And my dog needs the blanket. Ah. My cords are all tangled up. Okay. She always needs the damn blanket. I made her that way, so it's my own fault, as my boyfriend says. I spoil her. All right, so sorry, let's go.
You believe that
Continue.
at first somebody spoke to you while the cops were still around?
Yes.
So were you not working during the day?
I worked Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so Tuesday and Thursday I was off. So I'm assuming it was on one of those days.
Okay. And so you were home when they came and asked?
Yes.
All right. And were they, to your mind, were they asking about something that had happened the night before, or did they? I'm talking about the first time they talked to you.
Yeah.
Or were they talking about a specific different day?
It was a different day. It wouldn't have been like that day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if the cops were still there and they were asking you, how do you have any idea how they would know which day to ask you about at that point?
I'm going to object. Calls for speculation.
Yeah.
She knows. If she
Yeah, I
knows.
don't know.
Okay. So, but then at some point you also were asked to give a written statement. Correct? Yes. You got to say
so.
yes or no for the record. You can't just say.
Yeah, sorry. Yes.
And at that time you were again asked, and they asked you about a specific day that time, didn't they?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to show you. First, I got to get it marked.
Yeah.
Just jamming.
I'm going to show you what's been marked in States Exhibit 354. And the first thing I want you to do is look at the bottom of this and just tell me if you recognize your signature. And you can hold it.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so is that your signature?
Yes.
Okay. So when you signed that, were you trying to report everything you knew based on what people were asking?
Yes.
Okay. So is there a date by where your signature is that says when they were asking you about that? So you know what date they were asking? In the area where your signature is.
Yes. I see a date right under.
And so what is that date?
5/25/2020.
Okay. And and then
May
in terms
25th.
of what time they were asking about, date and time, is that at the top of the document where it says on May 17th, 2020?
Yes.
So that'd be 8 days difference, right, in terms of this statement?
Yes.
Okay. And on Sundays you didn't work?
Yes.
Okay. And were they asking you, based on the military time they wrote down, did it look like they were focusing on 8 p.m. on the evening of May 17th?
Yes.
Based on military time. It says 20, right?
Yes.
00, which would be 8 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to actually ask you about a couple hours later on a Sunday, okay? And whether people maybe were headed for bed and things like that a little later. So by 10 p.m. on a Sunday, do you remember whether you guys would be in bed yet?
Yes. I go to bed early, so.
Good. Okay. And so if I told you it was at 10 p.m., would you expect to hear things out in the
I'm
hallway?
going to object to speculation.
Well, I didn't hear the whole question. It smells that way.
Well,
But you used the word expect, so
Whoops.
you can complete your question. But you're on borrowed time.
not the first time. And the court has allowed me to pay up on those borrowing a couple of times. So my question is, if it was at 10 p.m. on this Sunday, what, if anything, can you tell us about how that would impact your ability to hear things in either the hall or the neighboring apartment?
Yes, because we sleep with a box fan, so we wouldn't be able to hear.
I think I'm going to end there, Judge.
I do have some redirect, Judge. Thank you. You talked to law enforcement twice.
Yes.
So the statement that Attorney Gravely was just going through with you, that would have been the second time you talked with law enforcement?
Yes.
And thinking back, if they were detectives asking you about that entire evening of May 17th, 2020,
Yes.
and if you were sleeping and you knew you were sleeping at that time, would you have told law enforcement that?
Yes. Yeah.
Nothing further.
Well, you're saying that if you went to bed sometime on the evening of May 17th, you would have told the officers I went to bed?
No, sorry, no,
Okay.
no.
Anything else?
Very, very limited. You told them you didn't see or hear anything.
Yes.
And it wasn't because you were sleeping. Let me rephrase that. If you had been sleeping, would you have told law enforcement, I was sleeping, so would not have been able to hear or see anything?
I just told them I just didn't hear or see anything just because they just asked if I heard or saw anything that day.
And thinking now, can you remember if you were sleeping or not?
No, it was 3 years ago.
Okay.
But I would be sleeping because I go to bed at 9 p.m.
At 9 p.m.?
Yes. And I've been going to bed at 9 p.m. because I wake up at 5.
Nothing further.
Nothing.
You may step down.
All right, so she's done. Let's move on to our next witness on the list, and this is Ms. Kim Lavora. Whoops. I hit the wrong button. This is Kim Lavora. She is the other girl that was talking to Rosalio. Whoops, that didn't work. That's why I didn't grab the link. Okay. So she was the other woman talking to Rosalio, and he lied to her saying that he was going to like Menards or something, to the hardware store. So this is her testimony.
Another first name that you also have?
Yes.
Could you please state and spell that also?
Sure. Eumdeun. Umdian.
And is it okay if I just refer to you as Ms.
Yeah.
Lavora? Okay. Ms. Lavora, are you currently employed?
Yes.
And what is it that you do?
I'm an accountant
Where?
at Wacker Newson.
Okay. And how long have you been employed there?
It will be 10 months.
Very nice.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I want to kind of jump back in time to May of 2020.
Sure.
And during that time frame and before, did you know an individual named Rosalio Gutierrez?
I only know him through text.
Can you explain how you know him in as much detail as possible?
Oh, sure. I was on a Facebook dating site, and then he liked me, and we started conversating through text only. Had a few texts. I felt like I felt nervous. I never met him. We talked every day. We text every day. He told me personal things about him.
So he was texting Sadie every day too, right? And she thought they were super close. But he was texting her every day. He was texting this other woman and meeting up with her. So I don't know. Sadie's description of how close they were, I think, is very misleading.
His daughter, his business.
Or maybe he was misleading her. Maybe she got mad. Maybe it was some other girl that he was lying to. Who knows? I mean, plus he owed money to a lot of people. We already have been through all this. But he had a lot of girls that were apparently interested in him. And what if one of the girls got jealous and mad? I don't know.
Moving forward on to May, he told me that he was going to Menards and picking up his daughter, and then the following days when it happened.
So I wanted to go back a little bit. When did you first, if you remember, when did you first start talking to Mr. Gutierrez on Facebook dating?
Maybe February, because it was really short. It was only for a few months.
And from the time that you started talking to him to about May, let's say 18th, 2020, what was the frequency of your communication?
Texting. We would text frequently every day. When I got off of work, I would give him a phone call. We would talk about an hour or two, and then I didn't talk to him for the rest of the night, and then it would continue the next day.
So not only just texting, but also phone calls?
Correct. He wanted me to meet up with him in Kenosha, and I said, no, not today. No, it's not today. My gut told me no, so I never met him.
And when you're talking about...
Her gut told her no, so she never met him. Maybe she knew something. I don't know.
all this talking and calling, What was the nature of the relationship? Was it just friendship, or was it more of a romantic relationship?
No, for me, it was just friendship. He wanted probably to take a step further, but I wasn't comfortable with that. So that was it. For me, it was strictly just friendship.
But you're saying for him,
Yeah.
it seemed that he wanted more?
That is correct.
Okay. And jumping to May 17th, 2020, do you remember having a phone call with Mr. Gutierrez?
If that was a Sunday, yes.
It was a Sunday. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 75. So, portion. Does that appear to be the phone call you remember having?
Around that time.
That says 8:49 p.m.?
Yeah, kind of. It was night. I know it was night. It was dark out.
Okay. And that's your phone number?
He had a Facebook call with Kim Lavora at 8:49. Is that the latest we know of his phone doing something? I don't know. Oh, this was answered. So yeah, it might be the very last text that, or the last person that he spoke to might have been Kim.
Correct.
So that 414-334-1158?
Correct.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
That's your number, this date, and it says that phone call was about 17 minutes. Is that how long you remembered it being?
Yeah, because he was saying he had to run errands, go to Menards, pick up his daughter. He was like, when I get home, I'll give you a call. And he never returned. He never called me back. And then when I called him, probably a couple hours later, the phone just kept ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing.
So after you get off the phone, after the 17-minute conversation, you said he told you what he was going to be doing the rest of that evening?
Yes.
And can you say what that was?
Oh, yeah, hold on just a second. Objection, it's hearsay. What he told her on the phone.
Why would it not be?
I would just argue that it was just the impression on Miss Lavora about what she thought he was doing, not offering it for the truth of the matter asserted.
What difference does it make what she thought?
That's the defense's position. I have nothing further, Judge.
It's her impression.
Do you have any other question?
No, I'm objecting based on hearsay.
Well, I have to say the sound is so bad in here.
Yeah.
I thought she said that is the defense's position, nothing further, Judge, which I thought was the end of your examination.
Maybe it was.
Maybe you
No,
just
it
didn't want to
was
haggle with me.
nothing further on our position on the objection.
Okay. Let's take a break. Please don't talk about the case during the break. Read, watch, or listen on your account. And 10 to 15 minutes.
All right, we'll skip through the break if we can. We're still on break. All right, so here's cross on Kim Lavora.
One of the things the state has to prove here is Mr. Gutierrez has gone through this witness in terms of their conversations about what is important to them. It's just seeking if that was something that was important to him. It'll be brief, thank you. Did he speak a lot about his children and their activities?
Generally, not specifically, no.
Did he explain about how active a role he took in baseball with his son or gymnastics with his daughter?
Gymnastics, yes, and softball, baseball, correct, yes.
And you indicated that through May 17th of 2020, you guys were in communication daily, multiple times a day?
Correct.
And after your phone call with him on May 17th of 2020, did you ever hear from Mr. Gutierrez again?
After that phone call, no.
And after you didn't hear from him when he was supposed to call you later that night, did you then try to reach out to him multiple times to?
Correct, yes.
And were any of those ever answered?
No.
Did his phone start going directly to voicemail?
It started ringing continuously, a couple times, and then it went dead. So.
And during your friendship with Mr. Gutierrez, was it unusual for him not to get back to you in a timely fashion, given how often you guys spoke?
Yeah, that was very strange.
And ultimately, because you were someone that was in Mr. Gutierrez's phone when that scene was found, did you speak to law enforcement about your friendship with Mr. Gutierrez?
Yes.
And did you offer to them all the information you had regarding anything you knew about him?
Yes, I did.
There were times you were actually in Kenosha physically and you two did not meet up, correct?
I was never in Kenosha.
Oh, you never met up in Kenosha?
No.
Okay. So you and Mr. Gutierrez never had any plans to meet up as of May 17th, 2020?
He wanted to meet up, but I never went.
Cross?
Nothing further on redirect. Nothing further, Judge. Thank you.
You may step down, ma'am.
Oh, okay, thank you.
All right, so she's done. Let's go. We're going to move on now to a little bit later in the day. There's an argument. Oh, crap. That's not what I wanted. Copy link. All right. This is now, we're moving on to another instance where Attorney Gravely makes himself a witness yet again, potentially. So here it is.
Last issue here, which might actually make Mr. Gravely a witness. So we were we, the defense team, excuse me, were contacted by a number of people and were sent clips of Marquand Washington's direct testimony. And in particular, and this was people watching Fox 6, etc. And of course, I did not see this because I was up questioning him. But the clips were essentially, Judge, that you remember. I don't know if you remember the testimony about him describing Zach in his sleep, and he said, "quote die, 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 motherfucker," end quote.
I do.
So that exact testimony, where he had the court TV cameras initially pointing towards Mr. Washington, but then as he was saying those words, those very words, the camera panned to Mr. Gravely, and one can see Mr. Gravely mouthing the words "die, die, die." And so I had members of the court TV staff make a clip of that, so it's unaltered, directly from their feed, and I was going to confront Mr. Washington about that very subject, and also what, more in depth about what his conversations with Mr. Gravely was in terms of preparation, and whether or not that makes Mr. Gravely a witness, that's a question for the court. But I intend to mark that as an exhibit and show it to him and question him about it.
That when they panned, I repeated the same thing he had just said?
No, you did it simultaneously. It was simultaneous, and it was very clear.
And so why would you have, why would A, either the video be evidence for the jury, and B, why would I permit Mr. Washington to comment on it unless you're suggesting that, you said simultaneously.
Simultaneously.
Unless you're suggesting that Mr. Gravely has been feeding the witness answers.
That's exactly what it looks like. I mean, that's why people contacted us. It's exactly what it looks like. And, it's the same thing with...
Did you see Gravely squirming?
This whole business about Mr. Anderson supposedly putting his lips when his daughter's on the stand or whatever signals to a witness. And so it seems fertile grounds for cross-examination of Mr. Washington. And if the court wants to review the clip that I'm talking about, I'm happy to provide it and mark it as an exhibit right now because it's compelling, and that's why people sent it to us. I wouldn't have seen it if people hadn't sent it to us.
We're 45 minutes late getting started, so finish up and then...
Yeah, so the report provided by law enforcement regarding what was said by Marquand Washington includes that phrase. So this is not a phrase that was invented in the courtroom. It's not a phrase that is in any way something that the state provided to Mr. Washington in this court. And, the Judge... I've been exposed to a number of outrageous charges in this case, and the court has patiently listened to those. There has been absolutely no feeding of any testimony to any witness. I have litigated for years and years and years and have no intention of jeopardizing my law license or my career by feeding an individual a witness on what is just a case that's going on in a criminal trial here. And this kind of accusation, and I understand that counsel got it from somebody on the internet, but this kind of accusation is poisonous to this proceeding. And I just want the court to know that I don't think it is an avenue that's an appropriate avenue of exploration in front of this jury. It essentially accuses this prosecutor, who they have had to listen to and have this go on throughout this case, and puts in the mind of a jury the suggestion that I have fed some evidence, and it is. And I want the court to see that clip before it ever made a decision that such a question could be asked of Mr. Washington.
I'm not going to pre-screen what questions might be asked and give approval or non-approval in advance. You'll know. If there's an objection, I'll rule on the objection.
But the taint is out there then, Judge, is my concern.
Well, I don't, if he claims that you were feeding answers, I can't tell him. You can't do that. He's entitled to make that accusation if he wants to. And if it turns out badly for his case, that's not, I don't know how I would preclude him from something that he claims. And I suppose if I have ultimately to make a rule on this subject, then I will look at this video. But that in and of itself is not going to be determinative. I will tell you. Well, I'm not going to say that. Let's just begin.
Judge, if I could have
So he doesn't make any decision just yet on the seeing the video playback, but he eventually does. The defense calls Marquand Washington, and here we go. He's back on the stand. Cellmate of Zachariah for about 3 weeks.
All right. Mr. Washington, you testified a few days ago. You remember that?
Correct.
Where Mr. Gravely asked you some questions and I asked you some questions, right?
Correct.
All right. So, but there's been some developments, so I want to ask you some more if you don't understand any of them. Again, feel free to ask me to repeat them, okay?
Okay.
And if you want to take a break or confer with Mr. Gravely or with your lawyer, that's fine too, okay?
Okay.
So, I wanted to ask you a number of questions about, I just want to actually refresh your memory, first of all, about your time in the cell with Zach.
Okay.
So, if I remember correctly, you had, and I'll just summarize these, but you had said that he was sleepless and
Objection. This is all leading. So this is a recalled witness. I'm objecting leading.
Well, Judge, first of all, this is originally the state's witness, so I would ask for some leeway to treat him as a hostile witness. I think that's fair.
Well, it is somewhat leading. It is strictly cross-examination, but up to this point, I think I'm going to overrule the objection. Go ahead.
Okay. So,
overrule.
But you've been in custody on this federal case, well, starting when? What's your recollection?
Since October 19th of 2021, I believe.
Okay. And during that time, there was a period of time when you were sent to segregation, or the hole, right?
At what point in time were you asking about?
January, February timeframe of 2022, so early last year.
I believe I put myself in a hole when they moved me off of the unit from by Zach them because they moved me to dorms and I didn't want to be in a dorm, so I placed myself in a hole. Yes.
Okay, so you did that voluntarily.
Correct. To get moved back to the cells.
Okay, and so your nickname is it Munch?
Correct.
And do you know an individual by the name of Maine?
Maine?
Maine.
No.
Do you know a Nicholas McAtee?
McAtee? No.
McAtee?
No.
Okay. So when you were in segregation in early 2022, well, first of all, can you just confirm that segregation is a situation where you're in a cell by yourself, right?
Correct.
And
Going to interject just for a moment. One of the episodes that we did, where we went through the evidence, we went through the pictures, we discussed these images, and I did say it had something to do with the cell, jail house informants. This is what we're going to talk about now. So this cell under the stairs is where Marquand Washington, so like if you're standing in the cell and looking out right now from what's on the screen, that was his cell. And this when they put people in solitude here, this is, so they're in their own cell, individually alone, no one else is with them. This is what that area looks like. So this is the cell block for that. And so that's Marquand Washington's vantage point.
you're in your cells 24 hours a day, right?
Correct.
And you only get out the shower?
Correct.
And you can't see people in the other cells, right?
Correct.
But you can talk to them, right?
If you know somebody or want to yell through doors, yes, you can.
Okay. So while you were in there during this time frame, you were in on a federal case, right?
I am federal MAS.
Right. And in KCDC, there's that's one of the facilities that the federal government uses to hold federal prisoners, right?
Objection leading. Hold on for just a minute. What the purpose of these facilities are is where it's...
We're just going to skip. This is
segregation, I'll call it,
not
because
as
they're there
important.
that you were communicating with from your cell, right?
No.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Okay, so
he's asking, are you talking with someone? Did you meet someone while you were in the hole, as they call it, and talk about how to jump on someone's case? That's what we're talking about here. So
let me just make sure that is this the only time frame where you were in segregation?
Every time that my level has went up and I've been moved to the dorms, I would place myself back into the hole to get moved back to privacy. So probably 2 or 3 times.
2 or 3 times. And in those 2 or 3 times, you didn't meet an individual by the name of Maine,
No,
also known as Nicholas McAtee.
never.
And so you didn't say, you weren't talking about, like, you didn't have a conversation with him about, quote, jumping on other people's cases?
He's already testified he doesn't know the person. So by definition,
Well, I will say that when he was asked the question, he was asked about McAtee, and I believe that the answer was, I think you said McAtee.
But I was trying to pronounce whatever name he said.
Well, I understand, but
Correct.
so it's not entirely clear to me that he really understood who the information was desired about. So the objections overruled.
Overruled.
You made a statement talking about how easy it is to, quote, jump on other people's cases, right?
No,
You made a statement that says, quote, you have to find a way to put yourself on someone's case to get time cut off your sentence, end quote.
absolutely not.
You made a statement after someone inquired about how you do that. You said, quote, you have to get a person to talk and find out about their case and make yourself part of their case, right?
No. Wow.
You made a statement that says, quote, what if you, well, you were asked, what if you don't know anything about the case? You said, quote, then you lie about it. You said that, right?
No. What are the dates on this?
Well, you tell us. When did you say those?
I never said that.
Okay, well, then the dates don't matter, do they?
objection. That's it. Hold on.
Okay, all right. I withdraw. I withdraw
Stop
that.
it. Stop it. From now on, you state your objection, and you're done. All right? That was kind of an argumentative question.
It was. I withdrew it.
Okay.
So you also stated, when asked if you would lie about somebody's case, quote, absolutely, I do what I need to do. It's either them or me. I would just go and tell a detective that I know some information about a case. If I have to make it up, I would do it because it's either my life or their life, end quote.
That is a lie.
Okay.
What do you guys think? Do you believe Marquand Washington, or do you think that he said those things? What? How credible do you think he is right now on the stand? Remember, this is the second time he's been called back now to the stand on the defense's case because of clarifying some things, including Prosecutor Gravely mouthing the words that he was going to say.
But you agree that in KCDC or any other jail, there's a lot of people, quote, jumping on cases. In other words, getting to know somebody and then calling up detectives to try and get time off of their sentence, right?
Objection.
I haven't seen it.
Just, hold on. If there's an objection, you wait until I rule on it. Now, I didn't hear your objection.
I think it's irrelevant, and we call for hearsay.
Overruled.
You can answer.
I haven't seen that done or talked to nobody who's done that. No.
Okay. Well, how much time in your adult life have you spent in jail?
I've been to prison twice before this, state prison.
Okay. For how long?
The first time I did maybe 4 years, I think, and then I got revocated after that for about 3 or so.
So during, like, before those prison stays, you spent time in county jails, right?
Yes.
And that's where, so you're saying, like, how much time in county jails?
So-
Just in round figures.
Again, objection, Judge. This is just irrelevant, and it's being used to try to attack the character of this particular defendant under a particular avenue.
Well, actually, if it were clear that it was being used just for that purpose, I wouldn't admit it. But my impression is it's being used for a different purpose. The objection is overruled.
So
Overruled.
about how much time would you say you spent in county jails?
How many overruled is that? How many times did Gravely lose here?
Months maybe, I'm not sure.
Okay. So in your time in county jails, you've heard of people learning about a case and then calling their lawyer or calling a detective and saying, hey, I got information about, Mr. Jones's case.
Irrelevant if he's ever heard of it.
Let's skip through a little bit here.
Getting whatever, being an informant and telling on people, yes.
Right. Like in jail, they would tell on maybe their cellmate or somebody they would see at meals or whatever that they had gotten to know, right?
Objection, irrelevant what other people do or what he's aware other people do. What?
The objection is overruled.
You can answer.
What did you say again?
I said you're aware of these informants in jail, informing on or calling detectives or their lawyers about somebody else's cases, somebody that might have been their cellmate or somebody they know just from the general population, right?
I'm guessing people do it. If I've done it, you're saying? That's what you're saying?
Yeah. So you're familiar with that concept, right?
I guess so.
And some of those people just flat out lie to try and help themselves, right?
Speculation. Objection.
It would incorporate some speculation.
I'll rephrase. Those people that are doing it are out to help themselves, right?
Objection, again, speculation.
The objection is overruled.
I'm not sure what other people do things for.
All right. So, oh, shoot. I just rewound all the way to the beginning, didn't I? What just happened? Where were we? I'm going to just hit the back button and see if that works. We're on Marquand, Washington. Sorry, Marquand.
Another first name that you also have.
Whoa.
Under the definition of
Okay.
hearsay 90801 and
Come
its
on.
exceptions. But counsel did not represent that, so
I gotta find where we were. Let's just skip ahead. So they do finally watch the video outside the presence of the jury. We'll play it again for reference. They take a little while to get it all worked up, so let me skip forward here.
Sure if I have to have my sound on for this. Yeah, I'll get the sound. I don't know if we can get it louder.
Yeah, the volume's terrible here.
Slag. So do you remember fresh recommendation given the close a little?
Can you see? Can you hear it? You can barely hear it.
Close a little.
That video is showing kind of a little bit of a lag, which they say, and then the judge opens up the evidence bag with the flash drive, and he puts in the flash drive for the computer, and he watches it on his own computer, so he doesn't have the lag of the internet. But we watched it before in the episode, I think it was part 1 of Witness Credibility, where we went over Marquand Washington's testimony.
And did I ask you
Now Gravely is asking questions. We're back on, I think, maybe not. I don't know if the jury's back yet.
whether did you and I go through the items that you had previously told myself and law enforcement at that previous meeting in January?
Yes.
And were there multiple people present for that meeting as well?
Yes.
And during that time period, the second meeting, did I ever use any phrase like that I would go to bat for you? Did I ever say anything even approaching that?
No.
In fact, you are a person who has a federal prosecutor involved in your case, correct?
Correct.
Are you aware of any ability I would have to directly impact your case?
No.
Is it your understanding that the way this would work is if you are honest in your testimony, that your attorney would let the federal prosecutor know and they would make a decision on your case?
Correct.
Do you think that I am in any way a decision maker on what happens next in your case?
No.
Now, you were asked if something refreshed your memory, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And what was your perception of what you saw?
Sound like you was repeating what you already knew I was pretty much going to say after I had started saying it.
So you were saying something, and I was saying those words after I heard you?
Correct.
Simultaneously.
Now, you were asked several questions about, time you've been in prison and in the jail. Have you ever been a person who informed on individuals previous to this time?
No.
And have you informed on anyone else in this federal prosecution case other than Mr. Anderson?
I object. What's the possible relevance of this? This is exactly what he was seeking to keep out.
And was, go ahead.
Shame on me for not interrupting sooner.
Up.
Rephrase your question.
You testified in Racine on a case you were an eyewitness to, correct?
Correct.
And other than that, have you provided any information to law enforcement about any other cases?
No.
No?
No.
Were you housed with individuals charged with first-degree homicide named Renan Brownlee? Was he somebody you were housed with at some time?
Oh, yes.
Did you ever inform on him?
No.
Objection. Same objection, Judge.
That's,
How is this possibly relevant?
Sustained.
Well,
State versus Tabor.
And they get into it about all the other people.
But I was in.
argue about what they can and can't bring in regarding other testimony. Oh, here I think is where this is a better version. They play it after they come back from the break. Gravely looks pissed.
This machine that I just show it to the court.
Directly off the computer?
So
I don't know. If you can't, you can't.
What do you remember about that incident?
I remember I was laying there the night before. I told him about the next day, but I was laying there and I was reading my book and I heard him shout in his sleep before he woke himself up.
And what did he shout that you heard?
He said, "Die, die, die, motherfucker."
And you're quoting, is that you remember?
Yes.
All right.
And that's still, Judge, from what you would see on the screen, whatever has to do with this feed.
Take it back about 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Well, the whole thing's only 38 seconds, but I'll just take it to the beginning.
What did Napoleon say? Don't ask me for time. That's the one thing I can't give you.
Here to you, he was having a nightmare.
Yes.
And what do you remember about that incident?
I remember I was laying there the night before. I told him about the next day, but I was laying there and I was reading my book and I heard him shout in his sleep before he woke himself up.
And what did he shout that you heard?
He said, "Die, die, die, motherfucker."
You're quoting, as best you remember?
All right, I don't know what the exact timing is, but on the video, as I'm seeing it, it appears that Mr. Gravely, his lips are moving shortly after the witness testifies.
It does appear that way there,
Okay?
but not on the actual item.
Not on the what?
Not on the actual item. You were just plug it into your computer, it would not do that.
Give it to the...
So there was a bit of a lag with the internet, or playing it, probably on like the Wi-Fi there in the courtroom. So the judge reviews it. Like I said, he reviews it on his own. I wanted his comments.
I look at it again. The camera actually takes you out of the picture at the
Go back a little.
That was our...
simultaneously.
What did he,
Here we go. Okay, sorry.
what did he shout that you heard?
He said, "Die, die, die, motherfucker."
And what did he shout that you heard?
He said, "Die, die, die, motherfucker." The fuck?
And what did he shout that you heard?
He said, "Die, die, die, motherfucker."
You're quoting, as best you remember?
Yes.
All right. And so, did you ever have a discussion with the defendant about the...
He woke himself up.
And what did he shout that you heard?
He said, "Die, die, die, motherfucker."
Okay.
You're quoting, as
To
best you
me,
remember? Yes. All right. And so, did you
it
ever have a
appears
discussion with the
that
defendant about this nightmare?
Mr. Gravely said, "Die, die, die," and also that he did so simultaneously with the witness. That's my impression.
That was our exact assertion, Judge. And therefore, that was the basis of my question, which I wouldn't have asked if the state hadn't followed up on it, but...
Our copy, we only see you say died twice, so I don't know if the court has a different copy or how that is working.
He only says it twice because the camera then pans over to Zach. He's only on camera for the 2 times that he says it. But that doesn't mean that he didn't mouth more of it, because we don't have that on camera.
They're the same. You're right. He only says it twice on camera.
Keeps watching it over again.
Die, 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 motherfucker.
Maybe it doesn't show it 3 times.
No, it shows it twice, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a discussion with the defendant about this nightmare that you heard him have, or these words he said?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I'm going to end this. Did you ask the jurors to come in?
Okay, so that was all outside of the presence of the jury to look at that evidence and to talk to Marquand Washington about it. We're going to come
And
back.
either remembering that or testifying about that at all?
No.
Nothing else?
I have nothing, Judge.
Give me a step down, sir.
Okay, so there was
Right.
really nothing. All right, so let's get to the next one. You know what? I've got a link for them. This is going to be the last one that we watch. No, not that. Okay. Hold on. Let me think. Okay. This is going to be Nicholas McAtee. This is the other jailhouse
be the-
informant who.
Will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth
shush.
shall be God.
Yes, Your Honor, I do.
Okay, thank you.
Schroeder. I'm hitting pause. It's not pausing. All right. So this is Nicholas McAtee. He was housed in the hole with Marquand Washington at in different cells he had. So let's hear what his testimony is going to say.
Would you state your full name and spell your first and last name for the record, please?
My name is Nicholas Ryan McAtee, NiCHOLASMCATEE.
Mr. McAtee, you appear to be in custody.
Yes, I am.
And I'm going to approach Judge.
Go ahead.
Can you tell me what that is, sir?
I don't object to this exhibit, Judge. Why this individual's in custody is irrelevant because there's no cooperation agreement, so this is not relevant. I don't have any difficulty with being in custody, but it's irrelevant.
My immediate reaction is it doesn't appear relevant.
Okay. I thought the statement would be inquiring about it, but are in custody at the, well, tell us where you're in custody.
I'm in custody at the Kenosha County Detention Center.
Okay. And do you have a state case?
No.
You have a federal case?
Yes, I do.
And just, you don't have to get into all the details, but what's the nature of the charge?
What the objection sustained?
Okay. So you are here as a witness for the defense, right?
Yes.
And had you been, for your testimony, had you been promised any benefits for that testimony by anybody?
Yes.
Who?
The prosecution?
Well,
And-
objection. Irrelevant hearsay that we.
You say the prosecution meaning the U.S. government?
No. The state?
The state?
Yes.
Mr. Amin, to your knowledge, is there any kind of an agreement of any kind? At any level, state or federal? Okay.
There's no completed agreement. There was
Well,
discussions.
so the answer, if there is an agreement, there isn't as of this point. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's correct.
Yeah, there's
You
not
think the
been
facts are
any-
otherwise?
No. There's not an agreement of any kind.
Okay. Any dispute as to that being the fact?
As of we sit here today, yes. Historically, that's not the
Now,
case.
don't testify.
Okay, but
don't
yes.
testify. No. You can ask a question.
I will.
I know you won't disappoint.
Thanks for the confidence. Mr. McAtee, the court just spoke with your counsel, Mr. Ahmad. Is that right?
Yes.
So he's here in the courtroom. So as I ask you questions, or as Mr. Gravely asks you questions, if there's a time that you feel that you want to confer with him, feel free to ask, okay?
Yes.
Now, have you had time to talk to Mr. Ahmad about your testimony here today?
Yes, I have.
And do you feel like you've covered everything in terms of how this relates to your current legal situation?
Yes.
And do you have any questions for him at this moment in time?
No, I do not.
So getting back to what we were talking about before in terms of there's no agreement right now, but at some point there was some sort of offer?
Objection. This is irrelevant, and there is absolutely no way that there's relevance in this situation, Judge. Calls for hearsay.
I don't agree with you. The objection's overruled.
Was there a point where your understanding, without saying who said what, but your understanding about whether or not there potentially would be a situation where you would testify for the prosecution?
Yes.
And what was your understanding?
My understanding was that
Sorry, sir, I apologize.
I'm sorry, but could he finish his answer? Wait.
He wants to make an objection, I assume.
Yep. Objection. It sounds like it calls for what his attorney has informed him, since I'm not aware of any other basis, and that would be hearsay and would be in improper areas.
Do you want his attorney to testify?
Well, I would suggest to the court that Mr. McAtee is not the person who should be able to report that because it is hearsay and is not appropriate for him to talk about that.
Well, then Mr. Gravely is going to be a witness because...
Please.
Well, no, because...
Please. It's not hearsay because it's not being offered, I assume. Well, it is hearsay, but I think it's an exception under the, what is it, subsection 4, intent plan. take a look at the statute.
All right, so then they take a look at the statute. Forever. Takes forever.
With Zachariah Anderson, right?
Yes.
You can answer if you remember the question.
Yes, I was offered consideration on my federal case or testifying for the prosecution if I were to.
Did you consider it?
Yes, I did. Very seriously.
So I'm going to back up and come back to this. There was a time when you were housed with Zachariah Anderson, right?
Yes.
Do you remember when you were, was there more than one occasion when you two were cellmates?
Yes, on 2 different occasions.
So when, do you remember when the first one started?
Yes, it was in August of 2021, roughly October of 2021.
Okay, August to October 2021?
Yes.
And so when you're, was this in just general population?
Yes.
So when you're in general population, how much of your time is spent together? Sub-regulation about that?
Lockdown in the cell is roughly 12 to 14 hours on a general population dorm.
And so, needless to say, you spend a lot of time together?
Yes.
So did you get along with him?
For the most part, yes.
Did you, was he forthcoming about his cases or his case?
Objection, state be taper.
I don't know how that applies here.
I'm not sure it does either, but I do think the objection is well stated.
Okay.
This is irrelevant based on state be taper.
So,
As,
I'm not sure I agree with what the case you're citing, but I do agree with your legal principle.
thank you.
so, so you got to know him though over that time period?
Yes.
And can you tell us what you observed about his sleeping habits?
He slept roughly 4 hours a night, 5 hours a night. Not anything abnormal.
Was there ever a time when he would have nightmares or wake up screaming?
Objection, same thing. Irrelevant based on case law.
Well, and I guess I do follow his rationale now. It's a taper-type incident. Pardon me? Well, why don't you give me the citation?
Okay.
The number of cases to deal with.
Give me the most recent.
Okay.
Are we making legal argument too, or are you just being asked?
So he's
2019 Wisconsin Appeal, APP 58. Again, that's from 2019. And that talks about inmates.
I thought we weren't going to argue about
I'm not
the
arguing,
case.
I'm
We
saying
just
Just give me the cite.
Gotcha.
so they're looking over some case law. Let's skip through here. Zach's yawning because it's boring. Waiting for them.
Stan, go ahead.
All right. So I want to go back in time now to a time when you were in segregation. You call it the hole, right?
Yes.
Do you remember when that was?
Yes, it was January and February, to the very beginning of February, most of January of 2022.
And now, can you tell us what the hole looks like just physically when you're in there?
Like a rectangular room, cells that have plexiglass fronts. They're extremely dirty, so you really can't see what's going on. It's,
The plexiglass is dirty.
yeah.
Okay.
But it's very loud. All you can do in there is
Whoops.
really talk to one another. There's nothing else as far as books or anything to entertain yourself with.
Okay. And so how long in a given day are you in your cells?
23 hours.
Okay. When you're in that situation, excuse me, physically, I couldn't tell. Is there just one level? Is there multiple levels? How does it work?
It's 2 floors.
Okay. Are they just in a line, or is it some sort of rotunda?
It's more like a rotunda, yes.
Okay. Did there come a time when you found that there was another federal inmate in the hole at the same time as you?
Yes, I did.
Who was that?
His name was Mark Juan Washington.
What did he go by? What was his name? Street name?
Called him Munch.
So when you were housed in the segregation unit, where was he in relation to you?
I was upstairs in the far corner in cell 22. He was directly across me, also upstairs, but in the opposite corner.
Okay. And were you able to communicate with him?
Yes.
And how is that possible?
Well, the noise carries in there, so it's if you talk at a whisper, you can hear it across the dorm.
And is it were you talking to him because you knew him before, or because he had a federal case, or what?
I had ran into him before in there, but only briefly. We didn't really know each other. We really just started talking because we both had federal cases, and there's not many people in ACDC with federal cases.
So, did there come a time when the discussion between you two turned to him talking about jumping on other people's cases?
Yes.
What did he say when that subject came up?
Essentially, he was giving me advice, because one of the things that we talked about with our federal cases is that we're facing so much time. And one of the ways he said that if you want to get out of your case, the easy thing to do is to just jump on someone else's case. And I'd heard the term before, but he clarified and told me more about how to go about doing that.
And did you ask him about, like, to explain that more to you? About how he did it, or what his thinking process?
I didn't ask him. He was volunteering his method, I guess you could call it. And he told me what he did. And, you know, he found out information about people's cases and whether it was going through their discovery or just asking them or seeing stuff in the news or newspaper.
People's cases. So did Marquand Washington. Remember, they objected, and he wasn't able to talk about other cases that he might have been an informant on. But it sounds like Marquand Washington made it a habit to become an informant on cases whenever he was incarcerated.
And using that to put himself into it by informing detectives that he had information.
And did he say what he would do if he didn't know something about the case?
He would make something up. He said, as far as he was concerned, it was his life or someone else's, and he said, you know, he would do that to save himself.
So, returning to the topic of you, there was some potential mention of you testifying for the prosecution.
Yes.
You knew something about Zach's case by talking to him, right?
Yes, and the newspapers and news.
Okay. Was that tempting for you?
Yes, it was.
What are you facing in federal prison?
Objection. That's irrelevant.
Kind of relevant now.
What?
It's relevant now.
Make up your mind, Judge. This is on 1.5 speed, and he overruled.
That's right.
Now I
I'm
said
facing a
overruled.
10-year mandatory minimum to a maximum of life prison.
And so the only way out of the mandatory minimum is to do what?
To inform or cooperate with the government.
What's your understanding as to what that takes?
It doesn't take much.
Have you heard the term substantial assistance?
Yes, I have.
What's your understanding about who has to make a motion for substantial assistance?
Objection. It's irrelevant. None of this is happening.
In this case, the state prosecutor, the district attorney.
Well, you have a federal case, though, right?
Yes.
And so if you were to testify in a state case, the actual motion would come from the federal government, right?
Objection. That's leading.
It is leading.
Hold on. He's just indicating.
I agree with him. I don't know. If you come to testify for the prosecution in a state case, that is the district attorney that would have to make the motion.
That's leading as well.
Motion?
Or make some sort of assertion.
It's again a leading question. He's just repeated the question.
I can rephrase.
Go ahead.
Behalf in order to get under the mandatory minimums.
He's asked.
What was that?
Which level of government would need to act on your behalf in order to get under the mandatory minimums?
He's asked. That's been asked and answered. He's already said that the state prosecutor files a motion.
Well, is that really true?
No.
I don't.
No, it's not. But that's what he's offering for.
For some. Yeah,
No, that's his. He has a false
I
understanding.
myself don't know the answer, but it would be my impression that the United States attorney would file the motion on the representations made
That's
by the
correct.
local district attorney.
That's correct.
That's not what you asked.
I was trying not to be leading as much as possible. So I can certainly ask that question as a leading question.
Go ahead.
Okay. So it's actually the United States Attorney's Office that files the motion based on its discussions with the district attorney in the case you testified, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Based
on
the recommendations from the state prosecutor.
To forego that and testify on behalf of the defense.
Yes.
What benefits would the defense, testifying for the defense, offer you?
None. Nothing.
They can't.
Are there any negative consequences to your testimony here today?
Objection.
Potentially.
Purely speculative.
In this context, I think it's a reasonable question.
It is. Obviously, he can't predict the future, but he can. I think he can testify as to what apprehensions, if any, he has. So the objection's overruled.
Yes, I felt very scared about what would come of me testifying for the defense. I realize that the district attorney has a lot of power, and that could be bad for me in a lot of ways.
So you obviously knew Zach for quite a long time, and you've been in KCDC. Did you know him to have any nicknames?
No.
Are you?
No.
Okay.
No.
So this would have been 3 days, about a little, about 15 months ago now? Wait,
Yes.
is that 13 months? I apologize. My bad math, right? Okay. You indicated that your memory was, if I get this correct, you were on the second floor at the far end.
Yes.
Does that sound right? If I told you that was, and you thought it was cell 22, that's what felt familiar to you?
Yes.
Okay. Farthest down you can be on that second floor?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And do you remember, are the numbers that are in the
over
20s
here.
upstairs, or do you remember anything about the numbering system?
I believe so. Most of the 20s,
Okay.
and then on down. Yes.
Okay. And so, and if I understood you correctly, this person, Marquand Washington, was also upstairs and was directly across from you. Did I get that right?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. So these discussions would be, I just want to be sure I have this right. So I'm going to approach you, but I don't want to get any closer. Just tell me how far away the cells are when you two are having a discussion. You're on the same floor.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Yes.
You have to say yes or no. Okay.
Yes.
So if it's a cell directly across from you, am I right about the right distance that you remember these conversations?
No.
Should I go way farther or closer?
Farther.
Okay. So how about now? Am I about right?
A little further.
Okay. So now, see, you got to indicate here, so I'm not going to go quite that far. How am I now?
A little further.
Okay. Now?
A little further.
All right.
Roughly there.
Okay. Judge, can you just give an estimate for the court about what our distance is right now?
From the front of the witness stand, no, that isn't right. The entire length of the courtroom, from the wall behind me to the wall behind you, is 53 feet. From the front of the witness stand to the bar, the bar railing, is 19 feet.
So if I suggested to the court it's maybe another 8 feet from there, does that look around about fair? That I'm about 8 feet from the bar?
Yep.
Okay.
It's probably
So,
all right.
so 19 plus 8 would be, if my math is correct, 27. So
You get an A.
What? Rough estimate is
You get
about
an A.
So Mr. McAtee, this is about right?
Yes.
Okay. And during the time period you were with Marquand Washington, were there other inmates in the hole?
Yes.
Okay. So what about on the second floor? Were there other inmates on the second floor?
Yes.
And then about how many beds or cells are on that second floor? So you guys were two of how many, based on your memory of this?
Somewhere between 3 other people, maybe.
On the top floor?
Yes.
Okay. So it's you, Mr. Washington, and maybe 3 more on that top level?
Yes.
Okay. And so far you're feeling like your memory is Washington is on that second floor, and is he the closest of those 5 to you in proximity?
No.
Okay. So he's across from you, but there'd be people closer, why? Because there'd be cells on both sides of you?
Yes.
Okay. But he's much closer than anybody who would be downstairs, I assume.
Yes, roughly. I mean, someone downstairs in the downstairs corner would be almost just as close.
Okay. What about the far corner? So in other words, the whole course of the dorm across from you and on the bottom side. Would that be the farthest away from you of the cells?
Yes.
Okay. And you don't know what any of those cells down on the down part are numbered, do you?
1 through 10.
1 through 10? And do you remember, maybe you do, maybe you don't, are the numbers in terms of them, is 1 the ones that would be closest to you? So order,
Yes,
and
they would be closest to me, below me.
10 would be the farthest?
Yes.
Okay. If there are 10, not holding into that. But,
Yes.
Okay. So from that location, and this is where you and Washington are having any conversations you're having about jumping cases, right? You're not having those any other place other than this particular part of the facility.
Well, occasionally when he comes out
Yeah.
for rec at night,
Yep.
they have a 1-hour rec where they go in and shower. We've had conversations then, too, while he was out in the day room.
Okay.
And what do you need?
And that would actually be a rule violation.
So you do see the people at some point when you've got rec time or shower time. The 2 times that you come out of your cell in segregation in the hole, the 2 times a day you come out of the cell is for your 1-hour rec time and your shower time. So apparently he just said right there on the stand that they did get to talk. So regardless of how far or close Marquand Washington was, he just told you that you get to talk to them like during rec time and stuff.
violation, right? He's not, when you're out in the day room, you're not supposed to be having contact with any other inmates, correct?
No, that's not correct.
Oh, you're allowed when you have that hour to wander around and talk to the people in the cells?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
And that was a rule back in 2020? I'm sorry, apologize. In 2022?
I can't say that it was a rule, but
It was
the guards allowed it.
Okay.
So there goes Gravely's, trying to get him to say you never were able to see or hear this person because of your proximity.
So, you and Mr.
He's kind of lost there. He doesn't know what to do, and he wasn't expecting that answer.
Washington were never cellmates?
No.
Okay. So, but you talked over this stuff, and it sounded like you bonded on just sort of discussions about stuff, right?
Other cases.
Okay. So, where do you recall where, for instance, where Mr. Washington grew up or where he's from?
No.
Okay. Do you know what do you know about his family? Whether he has kids, those kind of things?
I don't know any of that.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure they weren't buddies.
So your testimony is that Mr. Washington, not even revealing where he was from or any circumstances about his family, is talking about how you would lie to about other inmates and make a case, correct?
It's about how to save myself.
Okay. And other inmates are present and would hear those conversations?
Yes.
And Mr. Washington appeared to not be in any way concerned about the idea that other inmates would hear that he was giving you this advice or talking about what he himself would do?
No.
Did he tell you about other cases that he had cooperated on? He must have told you some stories about, here's what I did on this case.
No, he didn't get into that much detail.
Well, did he tell you about any times he had cooperated against other people?
No.
Tells on people knew the same thing, right?
There's no way he would objection. There's no way that he would know what Mr. Washington would know.
Yeah, well, it's speculative as to what Mr. Washington would know.
I'm just trying to skip through. Oh, what happened?
Has never met with you, called you, emailed you, sent you anything, correct?
Not directly.
So, and while you had been a federal inmate, back in August of 2021, I'm speaking specifically about August 4th, 2021, you caused fraudulent legal mail to be delivered to you in our jail, didn't you?
I did not.
So, did you have an...
He's trying to impeach him with stuff that happened, like other charges against him. So I don't think we need to get into all that. And we're just about done with him, with Nicholas McAtee. So I'm going to end it here with that. What do you guys think? Who do you believe more? Do you believe Marquand or do you believe Nicholas? It's, the jury has to decide that. They have to put aside whatever they're thinking, feeling, and determine who they believe. I guess they believed Marquand Washington in this case. But anyways, I don't know. I didn't think Marquand was all that credible, especially when they confronted him with the lies, and he's just like, what? Wow. So, I don't know. And this poor guy, Nicholas McAtee, has nothing to gain by testifying for the defense. If anything, he's going to be looked at badly, probably in jail, by the other inmates because he went and testified. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. I love to hear you guys' comments. You guys have been really great talking about this case and letting me know details that I forget or correcting me on details that I got wrong. One individual did that, and I do want to call them out because I want to give them a shout out. Who was it here? I gotta find it. The Angry Killjoy. She goes by the Angry Killjoy. She said, Sadie didn't go to Mexico with Rosalio. This is something I speculated on in my videos because the whole Mexico trip, she kept it secret. and she didn't tell Zach she was going, and she had Rebecca, her best friend, babysit, and just something about the whole Mexico thing really throws me, because I feel like it's deceptive. Whatever there is, there's something with Mexico there. But so the angry Killjoy says Sadie didn't go to Mexico with Rosalio. She only saw him in person around 6 times, and 6 times, and Sadie thought that they were really hot and heavy. And there are messages between them from when she was in Mexico. So I never saw those. Maybe if somebody has information of that, they can send me that. Or maybe it's on the free Zachariah Anderson site and I just missed it. I don't know. And then the angry Killjoy says she probably went to Mexico with some other guy, and that's why they are shady about it, which is a good point. Maybe even, Sadie had multiple guys at this point. That she wasn't telling Zach about, and going to Mexico with maybe potentially somebody else, but then she's still like acting all lovey-dovey with Rosalio that day that she comes back from Mexico, which I find is kind of strange. Like they just switched like to really lovey-dovey. If she hadn't seen him for a week, it's kind of weird, but I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. Next episode is going to be closing arguments, verdict watch, and sentencing. So we're going to put it all into one episode there. And then I might have like one more wrap up just to kind of go over some of the evidence and why Zach's not guilty. And if you saw his sentencing, you'll know that he's not guilty. So we will continue then, and thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you next time. Take care. If you've been impacted by a true crime and would like your story told in your own words, or if you or someone you know has been wrongfully convicted or accused of a crime, please write to crimeandcourtchannel@gmail.com and tell us your real true crime encounters. Thanks for watching.